Hey, it's Richard, and I am joined by Christopher.
Good morning.
We are going to start reading Sermon on the Mount. Do you have the book that's got the... Yeah, mine doesn't have a cover. So this is Emmett Fox's Sermon on the Mount. So if you don't know Sermon on the Mount, it's actually a very well-known speech, basically, over a few days that Jesus Christ gave. It's most well represented in Matthew. Emmett Fox more or less breaks down the Sermon on the Mount in this book. So what we're going to do, well, actually, first of all, before we talk about that, we're going to start the first part of it. So the first part of it is just going to be the preface. So we're going to read the preface and then talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to read a couple of paragraphs and talk a little bit about that. So this book is the distilled essence of years of Bible and metaphysical study and of the many lectures I have delivered. It would have been easier to have made it twice its present length. My object, however, is to present the reader with a practical manual of spiritual development, and with this end in view, I have condensed the subject matter into the smallest compass possible, because every student knows conciseness and expression is of the greatest assistance in mastering any subject. Do not imagine that you can assimilate all that it contains in one or two readings. It should be gone over again and again until you have thoroughly grasped the utterly new outlook upon life and the absolutely fresh scale of values which the Sermon on the Mount presents to mankind. Only then will you experience the new birth. The study of the Bible is not unlike the search for diamonds in South Africa. At first, people found a few diamonds in the yellow clay, and they were delighted with their good fortune, even while they supposed that this was to be the full extent of their find. You want to read?
Then, upon digging deeper, they came upon the blue clay, and to their amazement, they then found as many precious stones in a day as they had previously found in a year. And what had formerly seemed like wealth faded into insignificance besides the new riches. In your exploration of Bible truth, see to it that you do not rest satisfied in the yellow clay, a few spiritual discoveries, but press on to the rich blue clay underneath. The Bible, however, differs from the diamond field in the sublime fact that beneath the blue clay there is more and still more and richer strata awaiting the touch of spiritual perception. On and on to infinity. As you read the Bible, you should constantly affirm that divine wisdom is enlightening you. That is the way to get direct inspiration. I have followed a convenient method custom among writers of metaphysical books in capitalizing certain words that signify aspects or attributes of God.
Okay. So, what did that tell you?
This book is a book for knowledge. Knowledge of truth and knowledge of spirit.
Sounds about right to me. A couple other little points that I want to hit on is the first one in the first couple of paragraphs here is it talked about how he's condensed the subject matter into the smallest compass possible, because, as every student knows, conciseness of expression is of greatest assistance in mastering any subject. So that has a lot to do with why we're going to do this the way that we're going to do it. So we're going to do this in short periods, but we're going to be what we're going to do is we're going to read a couple of paragraphs at a time and then talk about it, and then read a couple more paragraphs on it on the next video, or maybe we might get through like this today, we're probably going to get through 2 sets of paragraphs. We got through the preface, and then we're going to read one more set of paragraphs, and we'll talk about that too. It's been my experience that I learn and gain much more out of studying metaphysics in that manner, where I just read a little bit and then we talk about that little bit. Now, I'm sure there's probably plenty of people out there that, that think that they have different experiences, and that's fine. But I also believe that there's plenty of people out there that can relate to the way that I'm talking about, where we just do those little short bits of it. And so I'm hoping that this can be helpful to people, is really what it boils down to, because I don't really see a whole lot of this on the internet. So I'm trying to put something out there that has helped me, that is also going to be able to help somebody else. And then the other part that I really wanted to talk about too was what he was talking about, the diamonds in South Africa. So what he said was, at first, they were in the yellow clay, and they were finding diamonds here and there, and they were like, "Oh wow, I'm so rich." Well, then all of a sudden one day they hit the blue clay, and in the blue clay there was a plethora of more. And that's the same way that that metaphysics and spiritual is to me, is that I have to stay persistent. This isn't something that I get to that, I don't do it, today and then, not do it because I gained it all today. I have to continue to try to do it, because it's about living. It's not about, just the knowledge of it. It's about the experience. It's about trying to learn how to live this way. So the more I do it, the more I gain, the more spiritual I become, the better the more, the more consistent I become, the better I become spiritually, the better I become as a person, the better I feel, all of that. So henceforth, why I go from the yellow clay to the blue clay is because I've gained so much more out of it. Make sense?
Yep.
For
the most part.
Cool. So, chapter 1, what did Jesus teach? Jesus Christ is easily the most important figure that has ever appeared in the history of mankind. It makes no difference how you may regard him. You will have to concede that this is true whether you choose to call him God or man, and if man, whether you choose to consider him as the world's greatest prophet and teacher, or merely as a well-intentioned fanatic who came to grief and failure and ruin, and after a short and stormy public career. However you regard him, the fact will remain that the life and death of Jesus and the teachings attributed to him have influenced the course of human history more than those of any other man who has ever lived. More than Alexander or Caesar or Charlemagne or Napoleon or Washington. More people's lives are influenced by his doctrines, or at least by the doctrines attributed to him today. More books are written and read and bought concerning him. More speeches are made, call them sermons if you want, concerning him, than concerning all the other names put together. To have been the religious inspiration of the whole European race throughout the 2 millenniums during which that race has dominated and molded the destinies of the entire world, culturally and socially as well as politically, and through the period in which the whole of the Earth's surface was finally discovered and occupied, and in its broad outlines shaped by civilization. This alone entitles him to the premier position in world importance. There can hardly, therefore, be a more important undertaking than to inquire into the question of what Jesus really stand for. What did Jesus really stand for? Do you want to talk about that?
Other than the boastering of Jesus, which there's going to be some of that, which is not bad. A lot of that was, for me, retrospect of how much I should be paying attention. I don't know how much of his words I need to be listening to and hearing, not Emmett Fox's words, but him speaking through Emmett Fox in that in the book itself. I don't know. The Bible, while written by all of, at least the New Testament, written by all of the apostles of Jesus, though those were just the tellings of his own story, in my best understanding of it. And this is going to break down at least most of Matthew's understanding of the Sermon on the Mount and when Jesus made his own speech as the Sermon on the Mount, and how that's going to affect a lot of this.
Yeah, I want to make a couple other points here. For me, when I read this, the big thing that really stood out to me was, I was personally raised going to a specific Christian religion. I broke away from that relatively young. And about 20 years ago, I started back on a spiritual path. And I got introduced to Emmett Fox pretty early on to that spiritual path. But I had huge resentments against organized religion. So I organized religion in general, and definitely Christian organized religions. So when I first read this, I was in a completely different frame of mind than I am today. And so what really stood out to me was how they described Jesus as the person. So he talks about it up here. He says, however you regard him, the fact will remain that the life and death of Jesus and the teachings attributed to him have influenced the course of human history more than those of any other man who has ever lived. I had to actually, once I listened to the way that they described it, it doesn't matter if you believe him to be God, if you believe him to be a prophet, if you believe him to be a man, if you believe him to be, a man with fucking crazy ideas. The truth of the matter is there's so much, he's had such an influence, such an incredible influence, on mankind, that obviously there's gotta be a lot there, so man, maybe I ought to listen. Maybe I ought to, open my mind, and that's the other thing that he talks about at the other end of it. He says, in your exploration of Bible truth. Oh no, that's not the one that was. Excuse me. Now I can't find it. But the other thing is going into it with an open mind, and that was what I had to do. Is I had to, set aside all of my prejudices. If I really wanted to actually try to hear this idea, and learn, if I really did want to better myself, and that was what it was all about. Let me set aside my prejudices and open my mind and hear what this person is saying, and then, not judge it, but just listen to it and see, maybe I can find something in there. And when I did that, when I set aside my prejudices and opened up my mind, I guess it's kind of obvious 20 years later, I'm still, I've been reading Emmett Fox and trying to practice Emmett Fox and the teachings of Jesus in my life for the last 20 years. So it obviously made an incredible effect on me. So, anything else that you want to add?
Nothing at this moment as I can recall. I know you touched on his importance, his influence, and that was something that it definitely speaks to me. I agree with you in that I'm not a fan of the organizations. But to understand coming from that spiritual basis of, I highly consider myself to be one of spiritual, not religious beliefs. I want to go into reading this and other works of Emmett Fox in that mindset of what is they're really talking about, not what is written, but what is those underlying messages and meanings. And that's something I've done a lot more lately than in the past.
Yeah.
So it definitely is something to open up into. His influence, it speaks for itself. Christianity as a whole is one of the number one religions throughout the entire world today. And it's going to continue to grow. Whether I choose to grow with my own spirituality and how I do that, it's how I find those patterns.
Okay. And one thing I do want to iterate is you've heard both Christopher and I mention that neither one of us are associated with any religious organizations. So, and I'll put it to you like this. So one of the realizations that I know for an absolute truth is that there are literally billions of people across this world who have gained so much in their lives and have grown so incredibly much in their lives because of the religious organizations that they're members of. So those are obviously good things because they've done good for billions and billions and billions of people, and these people have all grown through those and are better people because of it. So just because I don't belong to one, I'm not, doesn't mean that you shouldn't. And I'm not saying anything of that nature. I just have made the choice not to. But at the same time, I've also made the choice that I like to follow the teachings of Jesus. And that's all I'm trying to do here is, we're trying to do a few other things here too. But one of the main things that we're trying to do here is share the experiences that we've had that have helped us become the people that we are today. And we both believe that we're actually better people today than we were before we started this journey. So we hope that you guys join us. And this will be ongoing we're going to be doing one of these a week until we get through the book. So it's going to be ongoing for a while. You have a great day.